Welcome back to Pages, Panels, and Pictures, your one-stop spot for all things comics, movies, and more. The P3 team is back with our weekly Moon Knight review show, albeit a little late. But this episode had so much going on and so many things to unpack, so full spoilers ahead, and let's go. First off, we'll start this episode off with saying rest in peace, Gaspar. He played Anton Mozart, better known as the Midnight Man from the comics. This episode ended with a deduction to his memory, rightfully so, as he was a major player in this episode. He had a lot to do with the events that transpired in the episode, and what he contributed will play into the entirety of the rest of the show. So,
yeah,
it's very sad. I don't know what they're gonna do with his character. It looked like he got hit in the back with a moonerang at the end of the episode. So I hope we get to see a little bit more of him, maybe even in the suit by the end of it. But I know we won't see him in season 2, and that kind of sucks. Other than that, this episode had it all. It had gods, it had information, it had crazy magic, and maybe even a new personality for Mark. There's a lot to discuss, but first I want to hear what your thoughts are on it.
I'm very curious on who left the pile of bodies. If it wasn't Mark and it wasn't Steven, my first thoughts was Conchu. But I don't know, man. Like something else, like you just said, a new personality. Something's telling me Conchu's not behind it. And now that Conchu's in the statue, like I'm just like, it's so much happened this episode, bro. Like I if you guys remember, Logan, of course you remember, when we started doing the Moon Knight run, I didn't know anything. And like the first episode, I kind of wasn't even tuned all the way in. Like I was kind of like absent on it. So like when we finally like got to the episode 3 now, like I don't know, I'm just like all the way in, dude. This was action packed and it was definitely something that I had an immense amount of fun watching. So
For sure. From start to finish, every episode of the show has been fantastic so far. From here, I guess I'm just gonna dig into the plot. The episode starts action-packed as ever, with Mark / Steven chasing after a group of Harrow's men, demanding to know his location. In an attempt to stop Mark from committing these acts of violence, Steven begins to struggle with him for control of the body, ultimately taking over. But the scene immediately cuts to Mark waking up in a cab that was taking him to the airport for some reason. And
yeah,
after he wakes up, he resumes his chase on Harrow's goons. During this chase, he ends up blacking out again, and when he comes to, almost all of the henchmen are killed. His knife right in the gut of one of them. And Mark and Steven are fighting over who did it, each one blaming the other, but neither of them is willing to take the blame. So I personally think that could be a third personality, and more specifically, Jake Lockley, perhaps. I guess stick around to the end of the video to find that part out. But without the scarab, Mark and company can't follow Harrow to Amit's tomb. So instead, Khonshu causes an eclipse of the moon, knowing it'll summon the other gods to our realm. This gets the attention of the Ennead, the High Council of Egyptian gods, and they end up sending their avatars to meet with Mark and Khonshu, kind of seemingly to hold a trial on. We'll find out soon enough. It felt like Shinnok and the Elder Gods in the old Mortal Kombat movies, but not as terrible quality.
In Mortal Kombat Annihilation, is that old white guy Shinnok?
Yeah, the one in the hood.
No fucking way, really?
Yeah, it's terrible.
What?
Yeah,
I
buddy.
never knew that.
And this is staying in the episode because I need people to know how bad that is. In this council room, which is actually in the Pyramid of Giza, there's a lot of Easter eggs to not just the Ennead on screen, but to the rest of the Marvel universe. And we'll get into that. But inside the pyramid, Khonshu speaks through Mark and warns the Ennead of Harrow's plan. Khonshu and Mark make their case, and they made a better case than what we're going to get to right now. The Ennead brings Arthur Harrow in to plead his side of things and defend himself, and he doesn't really do that. He points out that Mark's mentally ill instead, and accuses Khonshu of abusing him when he was his avatar and abusing Mark's instability now. The Ennead then decides that the accused has not violated the rules and terms of their agreements, and they just let Harrow go on with his business. They pretty much tell Khonshu if it happens again, he's going to be encased in stone. And when I was watching the episode, I thought that was like a figure of speech type thing, but no, they literally
Yeah.
turn him to stone. Before departing the Pyramid of Giza, one of the other avatars pulls Mark aside and tells him about another place that he might find, where he might find the location of Amit's tomb. 2,000 years ago, it was encrypted on another sarcophagus that since then has somehow ended up on the black market. None other than, well, Anton Mogart himself. Layla takes Mark to this guy, played by Gaspar, previously mentioned. Anton's an eccentric collector that happened to know Kayla, and no surprise here, he has the sarcophagus they're seeking. Unfortunately, Arthur does show up during all of this, and the fight ensues. He tempts Anton to join his mission, and Arthur actually hints to Layla that there's more to her father's death that Mark/Steven might actually know about.
Do you think Lockley plays into that?
I kind of do, but I also kind of think that so in the comics or in the book, who ends up killing this guy is Raoul Bushman. It's Moon Knight's like arch enemy type guy. We haven't had any mention of him in the show, and it'd be kind of weird for them to mention him in the fourth episode and then not do anything about it. So I think that Arthur Harrow actually is like the replacement for Bushman because they were essentially looking for the tomb of Khonshu. And well, what was Harrow doing before all this happened? He was looking for the tomb of Khonshu. And I know Steven has no clue who Harrow is, but Mark has never once said that he doesn't know him. He actually knows a good bit of information about him for only interacting 3 times. Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be the case, but also Jake Lockley being this personality, I won't say Jake yet, but this personality is seemingly really fucking violent. I'll get into some other instances about him later, but I could see that happening. Hopefully, this isn't the last we see of Anton in the MCU. He's unlike other villains we've seen, actually, because, like, in the Marvel movies, they go for the sympathy factor with these characters. They want to make them a gray area villain. But this guy, he's not even interested in like world domination or dismantling governments. He's kind of just a snake and a nuisance. He's a robber. He's kind of like the one of the first major villains of the anime One Piece, Buggy the Clown, where he's the first villain and he's still around to this day, 1,000 episodes into the show. But
Yeah.
he is not really a major threat. He's just kind of there and around and committing acts of crime all over the world. After that little tidbit, Mark and Layla take the stolen fragments from the tomb and they go to the desert and they're working on the encrypted constellation so that they can find the way to the tomb. But Mark, being Mark, can't figure it out. Layla can't figure it out, and they end up needing the help of Steven. So Mark actually willingly lets Steven take over the body for maybe the first, potentially the second time in this entire show since he's been revealed. And good shit because Steven immediately cracks the code. After they prepare the map, Layla's using the GPS app, which is so advanced that you can just take this picture of the fucking torn up map and it just gives you the constellations in the sky. But
Bullshit.
yeah, it's weird. But they find out that stars move over time and it's been millennia. So Khonshu offers a solution that comes with a heavy, heavy, heavy price. Mind you, this isn't actually doing it, it's just visual. With Steven's help, he's turning back the sky to the night that this happened, or that all this went down, so that they can get the coordinates, knowing the Ennead's going to imprison him in stone like they said, uh, provided Mark frees him once they're finished. That's like his only stipulation for helping him. And
Yeah.
it works, but it means Layla, Mark, and Steven, and whoever else they come across. I'd like to see Frenchie the Champ show up in the next episode, but whoever's with him, they're gonna have to stop Harrow and his men without any of Moon Knight's powers or Khonshu. Obviously, next episode is the only episode Khonshu's going to be encased in stone because they will not give us a Moon Knight series where he shows up once. Overall, this episode was a absolute banger all around, from start to finish, off the wall action. The soundtrack is gets better every week and definitely gives the authentic feeling of the location and the story itself. I
Yeah.
Bro, these credit songs like the Egyptian fucking rap and shit, that shit slaps, bro. I'll sit there and listen to the whole credits every time.
No, I love the soundtrack.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. And like the American songs are like just as fitting choices as the foreign songs. It's great. Now we're gonna get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, and we're gonna get into a few questions I have prepared for us for this week.
Before we continue, I want to talk to you guys about the sponsor of our channel, Studio 5 Star. If you like pop culture graphic tees and decal stickers inspired by all your favorite comics, movies, and anime, then Studio 5 Star is the place for you. Great product, better deals, and new limited time merchandise weekly. Actually, one of those products is our brand new Moon Knight inspired design, Ancient Scriptures, which is available for order now. Quite a few of our previous designs will actually be leaving the store at the end of the month, including our Doctor Strange inspired tee, Strange World, so you gotta go grab those while you can and use promo code PANELS at checkout for 30% off your order. You can support this channel by swinging by there, shopping many things on Etsy, link is in the description below, and you can check them out on Instagram at Studio 5 Star Official. Thanks.
And our first question is, who was in control during the Mark Steven blackout at the start of the episode? Uh, we may have seen sightings of Jake Lockley in this episode. Returning to the start of the episode, while Steven's attempting to take control, Mark blacks out, but when he comes to, he's killed almost all of the cultists. Mortified, Steven begins blaming him, just as confused as Steven, leading most fans to believe that whoever did this is either Khonshu or a potential third personality of Moon Knight in Jake Lockley. In the comics, Jake is an ear to the ground cabbie, but this show may end up utilizing him as a completely different character in the form of a darker, more ruthless alter. Uh, we've seen that Mark, though tough, though skilled, though willing to do what he has to do, he's not a dark guy. He's not a brutal guy. He's still like less brooding than Batman in this series. So
True.
Uh, I definitely think that that Jake could be this like potentially almost like a side villain in the series that they have to come to terms with. Uh,
Yeah.
but certain phrases and tones throughout the episode used by Mark, uh, were off-putting. Some of the time he sounded like he was doing the voice of a gruff New Yorker or something, and obviously neither
Yeah.
Mark nor Steven are from New York or have those inflections on their voice. Also, when Mark woke up from the cab, the driver questions why he didn't speak Arabic all of a sudden, calling him a foreigner, but the issue is Steven and Mark both speak Arabic. So,
Yeah.
why was he
That's
not able
weird.
to do this while blacked out? And
He was someone else, and I'm sure Khonshu would be able to speak Arabic as well.
exactly. So that was honestly what solidified that I believe that this could be the next personality. They've been doing the imagery throughout the show, showing everything in threes with them, and we know it's all but a matter of time until Jake shows up. But this could be a completely new character, original to the MCU, and as much as cool as Jake Lockley showing up would be, I think it would almost be cooler if we have an MCU original alter. Uh, the Ultimate
Yeah.
Comics, like Ultimate Spider-Man and stuff, their Moon Knight, he's taken up the mantle of a bunch of different alters and like heroes. He's Ronin in the Ultimate Comics, not Hawkeye. Uh,
Really.
yeah, so
Hmm.
there's a lot they can do with this, and if they want to preserve the idea of Jake, I think they would go with a new alter, but they changed Steven up so much, I'm sure they'll change Jake up a lot. And
Do you know? You know
wh-
who I think it was? You
who?
can hear me?
Yeah.
I think it was Mephisto.
Shout out new rock stars. But
Toot.
I mean, I I definitely think it could honestly be actually Amit. which Egyptian Mephisto, because that would be a great way to set Mark up for this. Like, he essentially has showed how unstable he is right before the encounter with the Ennead happened. So, what if it's Amit helping Harrow out in the search for the tomb? We see that these gods can only influence; they can't actually like manipulate, and this is the perfect way to do that, as we've seen that Khonshu can do that with him.
Right.
But
this is true.
This all makes me wonder also if we've seen Jake in the first two episodes before any of this. There's a bunch of different scenes that, even now knowing Mark and his character, it seems kind of uncharacteristic for him. The scene in the first episode when he blacks out and he wakes up with the scarab covered in blood in his hands and all these men just bloodied and seemingly looked dead around him. That could have been this, or maybe that's who ordered the steak dinner. Obviously, Mark is looking out for Steven when he's in his body. I don't think he would be feeding steak to his vegan altar on purpose. But Jake, if he's down to kill people, if he's down to do whatever, yeah, he'd go jam down a fucking New York strip because he's a New Yorker. Honestly, I don't know. This is definitely crazy to think about as a whole, and it's almost like not content we can do. It's just we have to wait and just fiend and think about the same questions over and over again every week. It's so weird.
It's really the WandaVision syndrome. Like, if we were doing the show heavily during WandaVision, every week we would have been speculating Mephisto, and like this series has the potential to do that to us as well. Like, just guessing, like maybe there is no third. How crazy would that be?
Right? If it literally was just Mark lying or something. Or Steve. What happens if Steven's the fucked up one?
Right. The one that all along is being presented as the good, normal.
That's some Fight Club shit, man.
Yes, it is. Mr. Durden himself.
But, so, yeah, we can only speculate, and it's as fun as it is. I guess it's time to get on to our second question. So that is, what actually did happen to Layla's father and his archaeological team? We saw in the episode when Mark gets arrested by the two quote-unquote cops that they were zip-tied, shot in the back of the head, murdered in cold blood in the middle of the desert. And during this episode, Harrow brings up the fact that Mark knows what happened relating to the death of her father, and seemingly also implying that Mark had something to do with it. But in the comics, Mark and company are escorting an archaeological team to a dig site, like we mentioned earlier, and Raoul Bushman wants the treasures for himself to sell and kills them all. But I talked about this earlier in the episode, and I do think that Arthur Harrow is the one who murdered these men. In the comics, Layla is actually a character, Marlene, and she was there. But I guess in this show, Layla was not there. She was potentially too young. I don't know. Mark's supposed to be like, I think they said he was like 43 or something in this show on his passport. Or he was born in 87, so they're saying he's like 35. And Oscar Isaac himself is like 45. But
yeah.
So maybe Layla's younger than that even. Maybe she was a kid when this was going on. I doubt that's the case, but who knows? But it was either Arthur Harrow, or I didn't even think about it until now, but I love your idea that it could potentially be this third alter who done it. And that even then that would imply that Mark was lying, because if Harrow's saying he knows and had something to do with it, he potentially would have known that Jake existed and have wanted to repress that. But yeah, there's not really there's not really any like tie to the comics in this outside of the fact that these archaeologists were killed. So who knows, man? But uh,
Respect.
let's talk gods, more specifically the Ennead, with our next question. Who are the Ennead, and what role do they play in this story?
Yeah.
Constance summoned this council of gods by effing with the sky not once but twice, and not long after, we got our first look at the avatars of the Egyptian gods. Uh, First off, what'd you think of this scene?
I think visually it was stunning. Honestly, it was very breathtaking to like just encapsulate all of the Egyptian gods in one space. The acting was superb, as always with Marvel. A bunch of people that I've never seen before. I don't know, man. I just have the utmost faith in them. So, like, to be real with you, like, I enjoyed it like I enjoy most Marvel products. I have no complaints. Moon Knight is fucking awesome, and this scene is just another example of why I love the show.
Yeah, man. Like, when Khonshu possesses Steven and he's doing his voice and stuff, it it was kind of chilling. Like, it was definitely well done. The atmosphere of the room felt awesome. The little hidden Easter eggs and all the references to actual Egyptian mythology in the room, it was just beautiful. But
Yeah,
we so far we've been introduced to 7 of the 9 in the Ennead, and we know there's 9 in this universe because when in the first episode, when Steven's talking to Donna, he picks up the fucking poster and says that there's only 7 gods on there and there's supposed to be 9. Uh,
yeah,
but that potentially means that there aren't, because I'm pretty sure there are only 7 gods in the actual Egyptian Ennead. So that would imply
hmm.
that Khonshu and Amit are the last 2 based on how comic books work. Uh, So the gods are as follows: potentially Khonshu and Amit. Then you have Horus, Isis, Tefnut, Osiris, and Hathor. Uh, in the comics, one of the Ennead is actually Bast, the panther god from Wakanda. Uh, I always forget Egypt is in Africa because Egypt is such its own like culture and history outside of any other civilization. But yeah.
Yeah,
So during that scene, when they first walk in, you see a panther head statue, like a pretty giant one. And obviously, that implies that Bast is still part of this Ennead, even though a lot of the gods in the show are different than they are in the comics. But also, I think they didn't show Bast to us because the avatar of Bast would be the Black Panther, and Marvel doesn't know what they're doing with the Black Panther right now. So that kind of sucks to see. It
yeah,
would have been cool if they were at least just like sitting in the shadows or something. But
yeah,
even so, uh, I originally thought the Tefnut avatar, she's also a seemingly African, uh, well, obviously seemingly African, but she had like the same straps and robes as the guy from Get Out in Black Panther. I never remember his name, but
Daniel something.
yeah, but uh, it's Okoye's man from the first Black Panther movie. She was dressed almost exactly like him, and that I kind of assumed that meant that they were gonna be revealing that. And especially when the scene first showed up and they were shown from a distance, I thought it was Nakia from Black Panther. So,
Mm,
and there's been talks of her taking up the mantle in Wakanda forever. So, you never know. But the last spot could be any of the following. I jotted down a list, and it consists of Anubis, Geb, Nephthys, Ta, Seth, Toth, or Sobek. All right. So Geb, Nephthys, Ta, and Seth are part of the actual Egyptian Ennead in mythology. Then
yeah,
Anubis is tied to Amit because Anubis judges the dead, and if they're judged unworthy, then Amit devours their soul. So it would only make logical sense that Anubis would be one of them. Uh, Other than that, Sobek is a kind of shallow option that I just had to throw in there because as Amit has the head of an alligator, Sobek is also an alligator god. He's the god of the Nile, and that could be the case. But
Mm.
I gotta bring up my main prediction actually, and I think that the last god or the last avatar could be Amon Ra, which is like the god above gods in Egyptian mythology. Uh, his avatar in the comics is known as the Sun King, who may actually be the target as Ra's host because he suffers from bipolar disorder. Not only is
Right.
Sun King a fan favorite antagonist from the books, but his mental health issues may serve as a good point of compassion between him and Mark and a bit of duality in the end. The meeting of these, well, it, it would be, I think it'd be kind of odd potentially if they introduce Sun King here, but I mean, maybe they just don't reveal him in season one and then boom, Moon Knight has his storyline for season two. And, that'd be cool with me. I think Arthur Harrow, with his powers, is a good enough threat to be the main villain, and I obviously he's going to be the main villain, but we know Marvel likes to throw curveballs at us, and I personally can't even imagine what that is right now, so I'm just spitballing.
I can respect that, man. Hopefully he is the main villain because I'm locked in.
Yeah, man. Uh, But the last thing about this is that the meeting of these deities, it actually gave us a little bit of insight into Khonshu's relationships with some of the other gods, mainly Hathor and her avatar Yatzil. Yatzil, sorry. In Egyptian mythology, Hathor is the goddess of love, beauty, music, dancing, and fertility. Sounds to me like Khonshu wants a little bit of that good. But she comes off as friendly and helpful in the episode, often honestly flirty and stuff. But
Yeah.
I could see her potentially being a threat throughout this season. She's already introduced; they wouldn't have to deal with it, like I mentioned, Sun King and stuff. And
Yeah.
at this point, it wouldn't be surprising if she either didn't return or did return in either fashion. But yeah, I could see that happening. But yet again, if she would be doing that, it would just be serving Harrow. Why else would she have the need to manipulate uh Khonshu if it wasn't to help this guy? But
Yeah.
our final question of the episode, and this is kind of a fun one. This is a little speculation one between you and me. Uh,
Mm.
and it is: how does the Ennead match up with other gods or godlike beings in the MCU? So
They don't really yet.
I got uh I mean they have the capability to like essentially use alchemy. That's like how do you turn Khonshu to stone? Uh
Yeah.
and we've seen a bit of Arthur Harrow's power. So I did create a list of some of them because like you said, some of them they will not compare at all. Like I left Celestials off the list because that's a pointless cause, but
Yeah.
I I got three groupings as Guardians, uh, and I personally think like against Asgardians, it would have to go in tiers. Like some of the Ennead, some of them could beat on some of the lower to mid tier Asgardians maybe. But then if you put one of them up
Yeah.
against Thor or Loki or Odin, probably not a chance in hell. But what are your thoughts on it?
I'm more into the Norse mythology than anything. I think that shit's cool. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty much a fan of Thor and all of them above everybody else. But I will say that visually, the stuff that the Egyptian gods are doing is breathtaking, like I said earlier, and I just enjoy it all, man. But I'm definitely gonna go Team Norse.
For sure. It's it's kind of a given, especially in the MCU. They have stated, shown, implied, joked about the fact that Thor is that is power in the MCU. He is arguably the strongest hero we've seen still to this date, and he's like the third one we've seen.
Yeah.
But the next group is the Eternals.
Not a fan. Sorry about that. I had to check my battery. Not a big fan of the Eternals.
I feel like, okay, so Cersei, we know we've seen her use alchemic type stuff similar to the Ennead, but outside of her and Icarus, we haven't seen anything actual powerhousey out of them, at least in the godly realm. They're definitely strong, like superheroes, but they're kind of mid to low tier gods, in my opinion. But that being said, if Icarus is alive, the Eternals, honestly, he solos the Ennead almost. But if we're counting for him simping and dying and throwing himself into the sun, spoiler alert,
Yeah.
I definitely think they'd have a lot on their plate and probably too much. But that brings us to the last group, and that is the Elder Gods. Like people like Chthon, Shumagarath, Nightmare. Technically, the Ennead are Elder Gods. They are, yeah, they're the same classification as Chthon, Shumagarath, and them. They're extra dimensional beings that come through a Nexus portal in Egypt to our dimension, and that's how they started getting worshipped by the Egyptian people. So I just gotta say, Chthon is there's no way in hell. This is honestly the easiest one for me to say. I yeah, the Elder Gods stomp. It's kind of weird. Like at least what we've seen from the Ennead in this show, they they can do like visual tricks and alchemy and manipulation, possession. That is nothing compared to Chthon's manipulation and creation of chaos magic, Shumagarath's mastery of the fifth dimension, Nightmare's mastery over the dreamscape and the realm of dreams. Uh, it's just they don't have reality bending abilities, but overall, I think the Ennead are probably one of our weaker gods we've seen introduced so far. But
Yeah.
given the fact that we are 3 weeks away from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I think these guys serve as a pretty damn good introduction to some elder gods of the MCU, so we can get these Chthons, Shumas in the near future, and hopefully sooner than later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't wait.
Overall, this has been a great episode. It's been fun to talk about, fun to speculate about, and definitely more than anything, it has been so fantastic to watch.
You guys can get news and updates on my co-host's flourishing music career on all forms of social media at TilDN, and you can check me out on Instagram at RoachTheBoyWonder. There, you get updates on this channel, you can get some pretty cool artwork, and you can hit me up for all your art commission needs. Last but not least, if you guys had a good time with us and want to show some love, go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified later this week when we drop another Moon Knight review.
And with that being said, this has been Pages, Pictures, and Panels. I am your hostess with the mostest till the end with my better half, Roach Boy Red.
And praise Khonshu!